Welcome to Aging Insight with your host, John Ross and Lisa Schollmeyer. This program is made possible by
welcome back to another episode of Aging Insight. Hi, I'm Lisa Schollmeyer, and I'm here with John Ross, and we're elder law attorneys. And you know, elder law is a very special area of the law with very special clients, because in the elder law area, what we do is we visit with seniors and families that are taking care of seniors, or maybe folks who hope to be a senior someday. And we talk about the issues legally that can affect you, everything from how to handle that health crisis, housing issues, financial issues, and of course things like estate planning and benefit programs that are tailor-made for seniors. That's what an elder law attorney is. So we bring Aging Insight to you so that way you can get some information about all of those things.
That's right. Elder law is kind of like a compass, and the 4 points of that compass are your health, housing, financial, and legal needs. And if you combine all of those and you figure out a little information, you learn how to read that compass, then you can navigate through all of this. Now, somebody asked me recently, and they wanted to know, how old is our client, a normal client. And the thing is that oftentimes we're talking to somebody about their parent. So our client oftentimes is actually that senior adult. Even if I'm talking to their child,
right.
If we're talking about assisting that senior adult with getting Medicaid benefits or veterans benefits or doing powers of attorney, my client is actually that senior adult. But the person I'm actually talking to is their child. Mm-hmm. And many of these folks are my age.
Right, because they've got a parent who's getting up in years that may be facing a health crisis or some changes in their life. But yet that person that we might be visiting with about their parent, they may have kids at home that are still in elementary, junior high, high school. And so that adult that we're visiting with is trying to juggle taking care of that parent and also trying to take care of their family.
That's right. And they've come up with a cutesy name for this kind of person out there, and they call this the sandwich generation. And basically that's because they're the bologna in between the
bread of their kids, taking care of their children, and then their parents.
That's exactly right. And they're squished right there in between them. And so, if you're that person in that sandwich generation, what do you need to be thinking about? What do you need to be doing? What do you need to be focusing on? Because on the one hand, you want to make sure and take care of your parents.
Right. I mean, that parent took care of you. You want to honor that parent and be there. That's what family's for.
Right, but you don't want to blow the rest of it either. You still have kids, you still have a job, you still have a spouse, and it's not uncommon for marriages to become shaky during this time frame. Work issues. I mean, how many times have we talked to folks that have been off of work for days or weeks as they try to care for that parent?
Yeah, I've even visited with clients on a Saturday because they've said, if I miss another day at work, mom's been in and out of the hospital so much that if I miss another day at work, I'm really at risk at losing my job, or they're docking my pay. And so,
So the first thing in all of this, if you're in that sandwich generation, have this conversation, have it early. The sooner you can start putting this plan together and figuring out how you are going to take care of those parents while at the same time managing the kids, the sooner you start putting these plans together, the better this will be. As Lisa talked about, we have these clients who have had to take many days off of work. It's not uncommon that the reason they're having to take those days off of work is because they're having to, for example, attend a court appearance where we're getting them appointed as the guardian for that parent. All of which was completely unnecessary, except for the fact that their parent never bothered to get powers of attorney in place, giving that child the ability to handle business or make medical decisions. So if you're that person in that sandwich generation, it's beneficial to you, not just to your parents, but it's beneficial to you to make sure that your parents are planning for these sort of things. And this can be a difficult conversation sometimes. So often, the kids are afraid that if they bring up this conversation, the parents are going to think they're just waiting for them to die off so they can get all the money.
Right. Yes.
The parents, on the other hand, often are concerned that if they have this conversation, that somebody's going to start saying, well, why don't you give up all your assets, or stop driving, or give up your personal freedoms and things. And that's actually not what any of this is about.
It is, and it's it's difficult as the child a lot of times to start that conversation. But you can start delicately. Hey, mom, dad, do y'all plan on staying in this house, through your entire retirement? I mean, even just starting with something like that.
Right.
And that'll kind of give you a feel for where, if your parents have thought about these things, and, you just keep going back to it. Don't let them just put you off. You want to try to gently determine if they've thought about some things, because that's just going to help you.
Yeah, and chances are your friends, or your parents' friends, somebody that you also know through their interactions, has gone through these issues already. And a lot of times you can use that as kind of the jump off point. Well, did you hear what happened to Marjorie down the street? And she had a stroke. Well, Dad, what would you do if Mom had a stroke? How would we get, if she was in a wheelchair, we couldn't get her in the bathroom. How would, maybe we need to look at changing the living environment, or doing some remodeling. Do you have the ability to handle her business and call the phone company and talk to the teacher retirement service? Because I heard on the TV that they said you ought to have a power of attorney, and do you have those sort of things? But maybe you're not talking about them. You're talking about Marge down the street.
Yeah.
But you can use these sort of things to start having the conversation. So the first thing in all of this is to have the conversation and have it early. You want to be having this conversation before it's a crisis.
Right, and that can also bring comfort to that parent that's worried that child is, inappropriately focusing attention, for the child's own gain onto, these issues. If you say, hey, I just want to make sure there's a plan in place because I want to do what you want to try to make sure that we're, as a family, so sometimes that can help.
It's a lot easier to have that conversation with a 70-year-old parent than it is to have it with an 85-year-old parent.
Right.
Plus, their understanding of it is going to be easier at 70 than it is at 85. So have that conversation early. Now, we've got a few other tips if you're that sandwich generation, but we're going to save those until after the break. So you're going to have to stick around, and we'll be right back.
Hi there, I'm Larry Sims. It's been my privilege for the past several years to be a volunteer board member of Hospice of Texarkana, and there I'm able to represent community members like you. We continually customize our end-of-life care to better meet the needs of our community. As an example, our medical director and nurse practitioner still make visits to homes and facilities. Call today to learn more about the help we can give your family. Hospice of Texarkana, the nonprofit hospice established in 1985 for the community, by the community.
The Wadley Senior Clinic has been such a blessing for our family. Because they specialize in geriatric care, they take the time to really focus on Dad's needs. Their exam rooms are specially designed for seniors, and they offer lab and x-ray on site. With monthly educational programs on health and wellness of the mind and body, our healthcare questions get answered. Best of all, they accept Dad's Medicare benefits. See what the Wadley Senior Clinic can do for you. Wadley Senior Clinic, where healthy relationships begin.
Welcome back to Aging Insight, everybody. I'm John Ross here with Lisa Scholmeyer, and today we're talking about the sandwich generation. These are the folks that are dealing not only with their aging parent, but also are still dealing with their own kids. They've got minor children at home, or maybe kids in college that they're trying to pay for and manage, and yet they're also having parents that are beginning to have health issues or financial issues or legal issues or all three, and they're trying to navigate through both of these. Now, if you're in that sandwich generation, there's a few things to keep in mind. The first thing is you want to have these conversations as early as possible. Figure out, if you're going to be a part of your parents' lives as they go through this process, well then get involved and find out and encourage them, by having this conversation. But you can't just end it at the conversation, because you don't know enough about what's coming. You're going to need some expert advice in all of this. I was reading an article earlier, and this was actually an article in one of the state bar journals. This was a article to attorneys, and this article, it was talking about sandwich generation attorneys. So these attorneys who are dealing with their parent and dealing with their kids, and the second recommendation on their list to attorneys was to get an elder law attorney.
Well,
they said, you're an attorney, but you don't know this stuff. It's too complicated.
Right.
Your bankruptcy knowledge, your divorce knowledge doesn't help. This is a specialized area. And even as elder law attorneys, we learn something. We've been doing this for 15 years. We learn something new every single day.
Yes.
And yet we can then pass that kind of information along to people. It's unlikely that you're going to go through something that we haven't already been through,
at this point,
or
we've
somebody
seen a lot.
like us. So find people like, find elder law attorneys that know what they're talking about, have the experience that can help guide you through there. You got to have the conversation first, get that ball rolling, but then you've got to come back in and arm yourself with knowledge. All of that, though, is geared toward taking care of the parent.
Parents, that's right. And a lot of times when we are visiting with an adult child who is dealing with a crisis with their parent, that's where their focus is. At the same time, they're, coming up with the tuition dollars for their college age child. So if you're in that sandwich generation, another bit of advice is to make sure that you have your own financial plan for your own retirement in play. And by that, I mean, it may be necessary for you to financially assist an aging parent. You may feel obligated to assist, you may still have minor children where you are, in fact, obligated to pay for their needs, but you may feel obligated to assist your young adult child as well. But the biggest mistake we see the sandwich generation make is they forget to focus, or they delay the focus on their own retirement savings and their own retirement plans. And so by the time they have financially assisted that aging parent, maybe up until death, or they have financially assisted their child into, finally a career that pays something, they are right there at their own retirement, and yet they haven't saved sufficiently. And so now they are about to, at some future point, become that burden on their children that they were wanting to avoid. So, we always talk about financially, your kids can get student loans for college. Now, it's not the greatest idea, and we certainly recommend avoiding it if possible, but the reality is there are no loans for you in your retirement. So, save first for your retirement, and then assist as needed with those parents and your children.
That's right. And as you're looking at these sort of things, if you have, again, you save for yourself first. If once you've saved for yourself, you start looking at maybe, am I going to be contributing towards, financially towards the care of my parents, then this also then gets to looking into, are there tax benefits? Are there ways to contribute to the parent that lessen the burden of that by maybe giving them enough that allows you to claim them as a dependent, or deduct their medical expenses on your own tax return? There are things that you can do in there that again, if you've got a little bit of advice, you can do. The same, the same goes on the flip side with the kids. when you start looking at paying for those kids, before you start reaching into your own pocket, look at what else is out there. Oftentimes people, when they're talking about, say, with that senior, and they come in and they say, well, mom's in the nursing home, how are we going to pay for it? And we start talking about, say, Medicaid benefits, and they say, oh, well, there's no way we could ever qualify for Medicaid.
Right.
20 minutes into that conversation, we've shown them how they can qualify for Medicaid in ways that they never knew existed.
Right.
You can do the same thing on the back end with those student loans and the financial aid applications. There are ways to maximize the financial aid for students, and there are people out there that specialize in this, and for relatively reasonable fees compared to what you get in return.
Right. You can make adjustments to your circumstances and situations, the way assets are held or whatnot, that can assist maximizing your child's college benefits.
That's right. So the key here is, first of all, is you always save for yourself first. And that may seem counterintuitive when you want so bad to help these other people. But you cannot help these other people by putting yourself in jeopardy. That is not helping them. All that's doing is creating a third needy party in this whole deal. And that's not what we need. So you've got to take care of yourself first. And then, even then, before you start financially assisting these other two pieces of this sandwich, you make sure that you've maximized any other assistance that may be out there. Whether it's for that senior, whether we're talking about some Medicaid or veterans benefits or other government resources, low-income housing, different things like that, all the way, and then down on the kids' side from that financial federal application for financial aid, the FAFSA, yes, and making sure you're getting the most out of those things. So first thing, take care of yourself. Second thing, maximize those. And once you've done that, then if you need to make up a little difference out of your own pocket, it's okay to do it, but not until you've done those other things first.
Right. So, and that one thing about that sandwich generation, a lot of times they end up caregiving for that senior parent, and maybe they even take a break from their job, so maybe they're not putting as much in retirement through their retirement plan, their company's retirement plan. Maybe they miss out on promotions because of the care for that senior parent. So when we come back from the break, we'll talk about maybe some ways to kind of address that, so that that adult child also is being taken care of as well. So stick around and we'll be right back.
As things get older, they require more care. This car and I have seen a lot of miles together, but because I take care of her, she runs just like she did in 1955. That's why I chose the Wadley Senior Clinic, with an individualized care plan designed just for me and a convenient location off Jefferson Avenue. They have everything to keep me running like new. It's not about the miles, it's about the journey. Let the Wadley Senior Clinic keep you happy, healthy, and cruising down the road of life.
Hi there, I'm Larry Sims. It's been my privilege for the past several years to be a volunteer board member of Hospice of Texarkana. And there I'm able to represent community members like you. We continually customize our end-of-life care to better meet the needs of our community. As an example, our medical director and nurse practitioner still make visits to homes and facilities. Call today to learn more about the help we can give your family. Hospice of Texarkana, the nonprofit hospice established in 1985 for the community, by the community.
Welcome back to Aging in Sight. I'm Lisa Scholmeyer here with John Ross, and today we're really focusing on maybe a slightly different person than maybe our regular Aging in Sight episodes. And today we're focusing on those adults that are caught up and called the sandwich generation. And they're called that because maybe they are taking care of a senior parent and also still taking care of children at home or children in college. young adults that aren't quite launched
That's
on their
right.
own yet.
They're the bologna getting squished in between two pieces of bread.
And yes, you do feel like a piece of processed meat sometimes if you're in that generation.
Absolutely. But one of those things, if you are in that, a lot of times we'll see where the kids, in large part, they want to take over some of the caregiving responsibilities. They feel like maybe that's their duty, that's their job. Oftentimes, we'll see maybe one member of the family who quits a job or scales back on their work so that they can provide in-home care for that person. And of course, by doing that, that person is giving up their own income. They're giving up their own. They're not adding to Social Security. They're not contributing to their IRAs or their 401ks. So they're actually giving up quite a bit, which that will catch back up with that person later on. If you're the senior, you don't want to see this happen to your kids, and if you're the kid, you don't want it happening to you, and yet you still have this obligation, or you feel this obligation to care for them. And I'm not saying providing the care yourself is a bad idea, but you want to do it in light of what all your other options are out there. So Lisa, I've found that most of the clients, the child who's going to provide this care, most of the time they're perfectly willing to do it for free.
Right. Yes, they're not expecting payment. They just feel like it's a duty. It's an honor to care for that aging parent, and they're giving back to that parent.
Yeah, and then, so here's they've got mom, and mom's single, and she's got about $60,000 to her name, so not a huge life savings here. And the kid's saying, look, I'm gonna care for mom at home as long as I can. I'm going to do this out of the kindness of my heart. That way we can protect and preserve that $60,000.
Right.
What happens, though, is they do provide that care for free for some period of time, but it doesn't last forever, and a person's needs can easily get to a point where one person just can't handle it. And oftentimes then you start looking at long-term care.
Right.
And at $5,000 a month, that $60,000 goes away just like that.
Sure. And based on our programs that we have that assist seniors with the cost of long-term care, if you qualify for any assistance through those programs such as Medicaid, there are very, very stringent asset restrictions on the amount of assets a senior can have and still qualify for that Medicaid assistance. So if a senior has $60,000 in assets, they're not going to qualify for the Medicaid assistance until they have paid for their care and are down below $2,000 in assets. Alternatively, if while the child was providing care to the senior, if the senior had been paying the child for that care at the typical fair market rate and had a written caregiver contract in place, then those funds would have been eventually transferred over to the child month by month in the form of payment for caregiving services. And then if there came a time when the child just was not capable of providing all the care that was needed to that parent no longer has that $60,000 because it's been transferred over to the child through the caregiving contract. But most of the time what we see, John, is that child has put back that money as a way to preserve an asset in case mom needs it.
That's right.
But yet it's in the child's name. If we did everything properly, then the child claimed it as income, would have paid the appropriate tax, contributed the appropriate amount to Social Security based on that. But yet we still have a nice nest egg that is mom's money that the child is in control of, that even if mom needs, institutional-based care, we still have an asset reserve that will be there to provide some quality of life enhancements for mom at that facility.
So, the whole idea here was that you've got the child who wants to provide the care
right.
and thinks that by not getting paid, they're doing the right thing and preserving mom's money, when in fact that's probably what caused those assets to be lost in the end Whereas had they paid themselves or had mom pay them, they are now contributing to their own Social Security. They're not taking that hit later on that's going to come back and hit them later on. And we may be able to preserve some of these funds over here. And people say, but geez, I'm going to have to pay tax on that money. But I promise the tax that you pay on those dollars is nothing compared to what it would cost once that $5,000 a month bill starts hitting at the nursing home.
That's right. So, if you're a member of the sandwich generation, we start off, you need to have that conversation. Again, communication with family, figure out from your parents, do they have a plan? Most of the time what we find is they have what I call the ostrich plan.
Yeah, stick your head in the ground.
Right, and not do anything.
Yeah.
So a lot of times just bringing up that conversation can help everyone get past those fears of talking about it. But if you're the child, talk to that parent about their plans. Make sure you get good advice and get some knowledge about what journey you're on. Make sure that if you're that adult child that you are planning for your own retirement and you're making that a priority. And then make sure you're maximizing any potential benefit programs for whether it's your senior parent or your dependent children. And then if you are going to be that caregiving child, make sure that you're doing it in a way that you're still going to contribute to your Social Security and give mom or dad the best care they can get.
Right. So there's lots of stuff out there that you can do out there if you are that sandwich generation. No doubt it's complicated, which means you're going to need knowledge, you're going to need information, and that's why we come and do this program every week. If there's more, if you've got other questions, you can always give us a call. We do a live radio show every Saturday at noon on 98.7 FM, and you can call in and ask questions. We also have our Aging Insight magazine that's got some good articles on it that you can find out there in the community. Otherwise, stick around until next week and you can catch another edition. We'll see you then.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for joining us for this week's Aging Insight program with John Ross and Lisa Scholmeyer. This program is made possible by